great.
Well, good morning.
Good morning.
It's Josh and
George, Earl.
George.
I have a last name.
You didn't sound convinced. You gotta make sure that you talk up a little bit here, George. We're competing with wind and traffic sounds here.
Mariachi band's going by.
Mariachi band's going by. Hey, it's episode 39.
I think, yeah.
39
Yeah.
of Radiant Reflections. Josh Herma, Spiritual Formations Pastor, here with you. And today I have George Earl back. If you remember, George was with us when we had Pam on the episode also.
Yep.
When we talked about biblical community.
Yes.
So this is your sophomore appearance on Radiant Reflections.
People have told me I'm sophomoric anyways.
Okay. Is that good? Are they being nice about it? Like somebody's sophomore record,
Yeah.
right? Is usually better than their
yeah, it could be
debut
that,
album?
or it could be just I'm annoying people.
Okay. Okay. We're gonna go with the positive.
Yes, we're going to go with the positive. Yeah.
Well, hey, Pastor JB is back in town. However, he was not back in town Saturday for Summer Bash, so he didn't hear the message, and we didn't stream it, so he didn't feel right doing an episode on a message that he hadn't heard. So George was gracious enough to accept an invitation to come back to the podcast. So we're going to dig in and talk about the message here in a little bit. But first, JB is on site. So he made us coffee. We're not drinking out of our usual cups, but here we've got, and this is a giant cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Like this is probably at least twice as much as what I normally have.
Going to get a lot of work done today.
You're gonna get a lot of work done. So I'm going to read, that's good coffee. So JB wrote down the information, including the tasting notes. I have the information here. He didn't show me the tasting notes. That's folded up on a piece of paper in my pocket. So after we register our guesses, we'll talk about it. But this is from Seeds Coffee Company. Okay. JB said he picked this up in Alabama on one of his trips with Seahad. And this is an Indonesian Sumatra Pegasing. We don't know if we're saying that right. Pegasing. Pegasing. This is a natural process, which JB was just telling us about. So share with everybody what we just learned about a natural process, George.
All right. From what I can remember, the bean is actually the seed and the cherry is around it. And it falls off the plant on its own and they put it on a concrete slab. Or did I get that all mixed up?
So the natural process, basically he's saying like the cherry just kind of like, it falls off by itself. They're not fermenting it. They're not washing it.
Right.
It's just kind of like, hey, let nature take its course.
The sun.
And so
in the air.
You've got the coffee cherry and then the coffee bean is like the seed within the cherry.
Okay. That's
what you grind up and make coffee with, is that seed, if you will. So there we go.
And we will.
So it's a natural process. So take a sip there, George, or a little sniff.
This is my third.
I know I've been sipping it since we walked out of the green room. We're outside today because they're setting up for some bigger video shoots in the church lobby. Obviously, we're not in JB's studio, so we're outside. So hopefully you don't mind a little bit of the traffic sounds. Apparently there was a truck blasting some mariachi music a little while ago. So if you get any of those things, we just want to make this a full sensory experience for you.
Truth be told, we never left Summer Bash. We've just been hanging out here drinking coffee the whole time.
Which, cool note there before we get into the coffee.
Yes.
Which we sort of already got into the coffee. Yeah. But we are sitting where we did baptisms on Saturday for Summer Bash. Brandon sent out a text to everybody. We baptized 33 people at Summer Bash.
Wow.
So I think we had 15 that had signed up, and then we had a bunch of spontaneous ones. So we more than doubled with baptisms on Saturday.
And this is a good segue because I wanted to ask you this. I didn't prompt you, but so you got to baptize your one child,
two of my kids.
Two children.
Two of my kids. So I had the privilege and honor of baptizing my oldest daughter, Patience, and then my oldest son, Zayo.
Wonderful.
So super cool to see them.
And those were the first two?
So my daughter Alexis was the first. Last year, I think she was a spontaneous one. She had been wrestling.
Yeah.
And then she she knew, like in that moment when they opened it up, she knew. She popped up and she came up and baptized her. So
That's
three
awesome.
3 of my 6 kids I've had the privilege of baptizing.
What's
so.
that like, baptizing your own kids?
It's cool to baptize anybody.
Sure.
It's particularly cool. I had my sunglasses on, which worked out because I was getting a little bit emotional.
Yeah.
Just be, because I have the privilege with my own children of having kind of walked through the process with them.
Yeah.
And they're wrestling
Mhm.
with, hey, Dad, like I want to do this, but I'm nervous. Like it's in front of all these people. It's this, that, and the other thing. And so just being able to kind of walk through that with them and then to see it come to fruition.
Yeah.
That's super cool.
Were there special words, or if you want to?
Oh, no, I mean,
like
we've had conversations afterwards, and
Sure.
just
how neat.
Yeah, it's awesome to see them step out because for both of them, I know there was a lot of nervousness.
Yeah.
So it was really good to just kind of affirm their boldness in obeying.
Yeah.
So.
Oh.
Yep.
Thank God. That's wonderful.
It is.
Yeah. That's awesome.
I was pumped. So 33 baptisms. Wow. Super cool.
Yes.
Hey, we should scooch in a little closer.
Okay. All right.
And you got to talk up a little bit.
Oh, okay.
So
I typically am very loud.
We're outside, so you got to use your outdoor voice.
Okay. My coaching voice. I can talk across many tennis courts.
There you go. See, I always think that I'm loud, but I don't think I actually am. There was a little old lady when Ryan and I first got here.
Uh-huh.
Her name was Tiny, and she was okay. itty bitty. And we would do a chapel with the senior citizens every Wednesday.
Oh.
And she could never hear me.
Really?
Like I'd be sitting there in what I thought was a normal, like, good volume of voice.
Yeah.
And she'd be like, I can't hear you.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, I'm sorry. Sorry, Tiny. All right. Coffee. What are you tasting? I've got my first one registered in my brain.
It's good.
Which I actually thought, like, when I first sipped it in the green room, I thought, ooh, I thought dark chocolate.
Okay. I'll go along with dark chocolate. I will go along with dark chocolate. I'll also go with a there's a tartness to it, I think.
There is. You got to let it sit for a second because it's not like if you kind of like swish it around a little, you get the tartness. Like first, just sipping it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you really get that tartness. So what do you think that tartness is?
I gotta go with.
Is it a tart cherry? No.
Yeah. I think I've got to go.
No, I mean, I don't know. Because it doesn't taste. I wouldn't say that it's citrusy.
Yeah. See, this is where I lose my vocabulary and everything. I'm honestly not sure. I like it, but it's. I'm dead air right now.
I'm gonna say candied lime.
Wow.
Candied lime.
Wow.
So dark chocolate, candied lime. You got to put put one out there, George. I
see. I gulp it.
Trust that you can do this. So swish it around.
Yeah.
It really does. Like, people make fun of it, but it actually makes a difference.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm gonna go with a almost like a green tea. I'm gonna throw that in there. I'm gonna throw that in there.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just
any other ones you want to register? Because otherwise, I'll pull out. JB said there were 3 tasting notes.
Right.
Between the two of us, we've put out 3 of them. Anything else you want to register before I pull this piece of paper out of my pocket?
Let's. I'm just getting a I don't want to say grassy. That's not the word I want. Is that in the coffee vocabulary?
I mean, there are definitely coffees that taste grassy.
Okay. But it's spinach.
Spinach. Okay.
I'm so sorry. I like it. I'm so sorry. But I'm tasting a vegetable-y kind.
Well, because it's even though it's tart.
Yeah.
It's not fruity.
Right.
Like, it's not like a real sweet fruity.
Yes.
So
yes. But I'm
okay. So spinach. All right. Dude, you
I was thinking yucca, and I'm looking at that plant over
did you
there.
hear
like,
my guess of romaine lettuce in the juice last week?
oh,
I was
no.
way off.
I haven't
way
gotten
off.
to this week or this last week.
All right.
Okay.
So we've not seen these before. So JB wrote these down. Oh, tropical candy.
Oh, you got it.
That's a
The
candied lime.
Yeah.
Oh, and lime.
Oh man. Yes.
And pie crust. Huh.
See, I just
Pie crust. Who just eats the crust of a pie? You know?
no, I don't. I've eaten pie crust on its own, but after. Well, I mean, just
Well,
after
like
you
your
eat the pie.
leftover.
Yeah, the leftover.
Yeah, but I mean,
yeah.
it's like a necessary evil,
Yes,
isn't it? Or do you
it
like,
is.
really
I
like the
like
crust?
it. I like it. Eat it intermittently between the pie filling and all that.
Okay.
Yeah. So I love coffee. I just don't have a real good discerning taste, and I
Okay.
don't. Anyway,
Dude, I'm not gonna lie. I'm freaking pumped about that
looking
lime
shaky.
and the
He's
candy.
shaky.
That might be because I drank
Oh, that may be
coffee
it
already.
No, so the first time, I guessed gummy bears, gorgonzola cheese, and squid, and that was a joke, of course. So I'm
waiting for there to be a gorgonzola cheese.
I bet there is.
Tasty note.
I
or
bet
something.
there is. No, this is good. This is really good.
Okay. Well, hey, real quick,
Mm.
and I might do this multiple times because of the issue we ran into last week. You say something cool. I want you to start talking briefly
Okay.
about where you were for a little while.
Oh yes.
While I
Yes.
walk around and make sure that the camera's still recording.
Okay. Hello,
So-
camera. Okay, we have to do all that again, maybe. So, 2 years ago, I'm going to give the short, quick, but contextual version here. 2 years ago, my wife, Christine, her mom said, I'm turning 80. So she was 78 at the time. She said, I want to take everybody to Africa. And we went, okay, that sounds great. We were thrilled. And so we went to northern Botswana along Ongavangu Delta.
So help us out with geography. Africa's
Yes.
a big continent.
Africa is,
So-
thank you for saying it's a continent, not a country.
So
too.
if this
Yes.
is Africa,
Yes. So here is South Africa. South Africa is a country. North of the country of South Africa, where Johannesburg
okay,
is a country called Botswana.
okay.
You're digging into the Kalahari Desert there. North of Botswana.
So you're north of South Africa because my only African experience is in Sierra Leone, which is
Right.
right over here, Western
you're
Africa.
totally different climate and
Oh,
everything because you've got the
absolutely.
rainforest and all that. And so northern Botswana is where we were, and then we went across the border to Zambia, where Victoria Falls is.
Okay.
And it was absolutely amazing experience.
Could Victoria get back up?
Well, it's funny because oh, I get it now. Oh my gosh, I'm like, yes, it's the pie crust getting me. So named after Queen Victoria. But do you know the actual name or the translation of the name of Victoria Falls?
I do not.
The smoke that thunders. The smoke is the perpetual mist, and when you got a waterfall that big. I think the statistic he threw out there, our guide, was every minute 1 million liters falls over Victoria Falls.
There's a lot of water.
That's a lot of water. And it was sharply contrasted with where we were, which was bush. We were in the bush camps. We stayed at 2 different bush camps in Botswana. Botswana is a place where it's all tourism. They don't have any industry.
Really?
Yeah. Well, hold on, let me think. No, not like any manufacturing industry or anything like that. The main industry is tourism.
Huh.
So when you go, I mean, I'm sure there are some other things that they produce.
But that's their primary
That's their primary
income.
Yes. And so they do it up fantastically. English background because they were colonized. Let me back up a second. There are diamonds there. But as far as making things, so you have diamonds and tourism.
Okay.
And so diamonds are pretty important, and they, the whole Southern Africa is big on that. So it was incredible. It was incredible. The people were wonderful. Again, it's not just, hey, we're tourists. They're just genuinely very sweet people. And, we saw a game. I sent pictures out to my life group. So life group people share.
Well,
those
you
with
were
me.
showing us that
Yes.
video or the picture at Summer Bash
Yes.
of multiple lions. Well,
oh yeah.
a lioness.
Lioness. Yep.
Multiple What's the plural for lioness?
Lionesses,
Lionesses?
I think.
Sounds like
Sounds-
Linus from Charlie Brown.
Yeah, kids with blankets all around Africa.
Lionesses.
Yeah.
Lionesses.
They, as I told you, they are, they're not trained, they're not tame. You don't want to use that word for the lions, but they don't care. They ignore you because you don't harm them, they don't harm you.
So when you guys are out there, are you like in the wild, or is it like a game preserve where it's like, hey, you've got, maybe
Both.
if it's hundreds of thousands of acres,
Yeah.
but there's some sort of a fence somewhere, or
There's
this
no
is-
fences.
Okay, so these are just free range.
They just let them go. Let them
Okay.
go, because if you put up fences, you get in. Because the animals will go to where the natural resources are. The elephants need the water, and I mean they all do. And so if you're putting up fences, and anyway, it is amazing that you can just drive up next to them with an open car, an open safari.
You showed me the Jeep. I'm like, dude,
Yes.
there's like
Yeah.
a lion could just jump right in there, man.
Yeah, but you and I would be fine because we're wearing non-bright clothing, and they say don't stare, because the flashy clothing is kind of what gets their eye, some of them. And it's like, oh, what's that?
Huh.
It could be a deer tail. Hunters will, I think.
Okay.
I'm not real knowledgeable on hunting, but I think they will. I mean, other than camouflage, if you're giving yourself away, I don't know. I think that might
Okay,
be a
so
thing.
for real, like
This is what I wore.
they cautioned you on like what type of clothing to wear, kind of thing?
Yeah, and that was probably mainly with the hippos and the larger animals.
Dude, I've heard hippos. You don't mess with a hippo.
Most dangerous animal. The most killer animal in Africa is actually the hippo.
Do you still want a hippopotamus for Christmas? I don't think so.
Not even my
Gayla
two.
Peavy.
It'll take more than my two front teeth. yeah, right. But the hippopotamus is very territorial, and so if you get close to it, it'll defend itself. They're vegetarians, though. The hippopotami are.
So they'll kill you, but they won't eat you.
I think, yeah, and they're just so big, they might just run into you, headbutt you. I'm not sure. I didn't want to know. I didn't want to find out. So yeah, we get close to the hippos and or not close to the hippo, close to the lionesses, very close. Elephant came up to us probably about 10 feet away,
Okay.
and then just kind of looked. It was a young female, just kind of ambered up, and because they don't have real good eyesight, so they just kind of look at you.
Elephants don't.
Elephants don't. That's what our guides tell us. The cats do. The cats do. The antelope, the impala, and all those, they do. But yeah, you would think they don't. They've got real good hearing. Something about big ears, I guess.
Something.
And I think their smell is pretty good. And it just, all of what these guides had to say, you just learn a new respect for not just nature, God's creation, of course. These guys were tracking. We're driving along, and they slow way down. They look over the side of the car, and they go, yep, a leopard's going this way. Let's see if we can find it. And he turns around, and he's going, just they're expert trackers. It made me think of the Native Americans. You see the movies, how they're really good at tracking animals. And so they shared some of that with us. You can tell how fresh they are. And it was just amazing.
Huh.
Amazing.
Super cool.
Wonderful, wonderful experience. And here's something I wrote in my journal, if I can kind of remember it, that I learned. I prayed before I went. I'm like, God, open my eyes, show me, because this is totally new continent, new people. Just make me humble. Let me see. And one of the things that really came out was the way they spoke, because it was a second language. They're English speakers, because they have to communicate with a lot of people that come, the clientele. They speak, it's almost like a information sandwich. They kind of give you what they want to say, and then they front load it a little bit, and then they kind of say it at the end as well. So I could say, I like coffee. That's what I really want to say. But before that, I say, coffee is a really interesting drink. It comes from this and comes from that, and this is how you make it. And then I really like coffee. And then at the end, they'll kind of rehash some of that. They'll say the same thing in a few different ways, and you had to learn some patience to listen to them. But as well as on the track, as well as when we were tracking the animals, you had to really be patient. There were 3 or 4 hours we're tracking these animals, and you don't see what you're looking for, but he's persistent. The guide is persistent. And so you learn a whole new level of patience, of appreciation for the trade, the craft that these guys have, the knowledge that they have that I have nothing about. I'm like, those are tennis shoe tracks. That's all I know. I mean, we could see deer tracks in my yard, that kind of thing. But it's a whole level of patience, and sometimes you have to wait longer and longer for the rewards. And there are spiritual lessons there. I'm like, God is speaking to me as we're tracking these animals. And afterwards, as I'm reflecting, I'm going, wow, there's deep spiritual lessons here in just tracking an animal and being patient. So it was very cool. It was very cool. I loved it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Happy to be back.
That's
happy
awesome.
To be back. Yeah.
Super cool. Well, hey, let's jump in. So this past Saturday at Summer Bash, Pastor Ryan continued our Mark series, and he camped out in 3-4 verses in Mark chapter 8.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to jump into that. The title of his message was These 4 Words. If you didn't come to Summer Bash, unfortunately, like I said, you can't go back and watch it.
Right.
So, sorry. But
here's what you do. You go to the neighbors.
They heard.
We were farther back. And when he was speaking, it was very loud, which was great. And I could hear it bouncing off did you hear it bouncing off of the houses back here? And so it was like, I'm getting in the front of my head and I'm getting in the back of my head. So I got like a double message.
You got it twice.
I got it twice. But ask the neighbors if you didn't hear it.
So there's a couple of things maybe I want to get into, but I want to first, what jumped out to you? Like, what did Holy Spirit kind of float to the surface on your heart there?
Well, structurally, he said it's directly in the center of the Gospel of Mark. You are the Christ. And I thought that was neat how Ryan weaved together. He said, it's in the center of the Bible, but these words should be in the center of your life. And to unpack that, and I'm sure we're going to get more into that. So he asked the question, where do I stand with Jesus today? Today, not yesterday, not the day before. While that is instructive, each day. And so make Jesus the center of your life. And there's, that sounds simple, and it's that simple, but it's so profound too, because he opened up how I talk with my wife, how I talk with other people, how I drive my car, everything, make Jesus the center of your life. So that was a great starting point.
Well, and I think it's important, right? Especially back when I worked with students, like my big thing was trying to help students own their faith.
Yeah.
Right now through the Radiant Institute, it's trying to help adults, young adults, own their faith, because sometimes we live off of the first part. Jesus asked his disciples, who do people say that I am?
Yeah.
Oh, well, people say you're this, people say you're that. They're maybe John the Baptist or Elijah or one of the prophets.
Yeah. I
think sometimes we live and who we say Jesus is, well, mom and dad say, this is who Jesus is. Mm-hmm. Grandpa and grandma.
Or my favorite preacher.
Yeah, or my favorite pastor says, this is who Jesus is. But who do you say that Jesus is?
Yes.
You don't get in on your favorite pastor's coattails, your parents' coattails, your grandparents' coattails. Who do you say that Jesus is?
Yeah, and that's where the blessing is too. The blessing from God, you are blessed from your parents, from your pastor and everybody else. But when you, as you say, when you own it, that's when you own the blessing too, so to speak.
Yep.
If we can say it that way.
Yep. No, that's good. That's good. So early on, Ryan made a statement, and we can probably spend a little bit of time jumping into this. Mm-hmm. He said, what we believe about Jesus is connected to our daily decisions. Mm. Let's double click on that a little bit, because I do think even, and we've talked about this many times on the podcast, right? But we're going to talk about it again.
Yep.
On the podcast, right? Unfortunately, in our culture, there tends to be still this separation between the sacred and the secular.
Yeah.
These are the things that I do for the spiritual part of my life. I go to church.
Yep.
Maybe I read the Bible every now and then. Yep. Like I do those things, and that's spiritual.
Yeah.
But then there's all the whole rest of my life. And the way that I do that doesn't have anything to do with the spiritual.
They can be totally separate or compartmentalized.
Yeah.
And people talk about, and Christians talk about, so I don't know, maybe I'm stepping on toes here, but we talk about in the Christian life. We say in the Christian life. How about just in the life?
Life. Yeah.
Because, but
Yeah.
you're right. So,
Well, I mean, and this shows up in interesting ways, and I'm not trying to like pick on people, right? But sometimes this happens. I would say almost once a week.
Yeah,
almost once a week. Usually on a Sunday morning, you'll be having a conversation with somebody, and they'll say, "Oh, well, I don't want to say that in church." It's like, if you shouldn't say it in church, you probably shouldn't say it anywhere.
Right.
But again, it's this separation of, oh, well, in church, these things are wrong and are not allowed. But outside of church is totally cool. I mean, sometimes, oh, hey, you shouldn't lie in church. You shouldn't lie anywhere.
What do you mean I can't take a nap or whatever? No, that's well said. And as we read the Bible, that was never the intention of Jesus or the disciples. Whatever you do, whether you eat or drink, do it all for the glory of God. He's not talking about a place. He's talking about an action. Whatever you do.
Yeah. So what you believe about Jesus, like Pastor Ryan said, it's connected to your daily activities. Following Jesus should affect your performance at work.
Mm-hmm.
Following Jesus should affect your marriage. Yep. Following Jesus, if you have kids, should affect the way that you parent. Following Jesus should affect the type of friend that you are and the type of friend that you have. Everything. It should affect, Ryan kind of hit on some of these things. Yeah. Following Jesus should affect the way that you look at and utilize your finances.
Yeah.
Like none of these things are outside the scope of discipleship to Jesus.
Right.
Everything is covered.
He died for all of you, so give him all of you.
Yes.
He didn't say, well, I'm just going to die for your pocketbook here, or I'm just going to die for your language, Yeah.
So let's explore a few of those things. All right. So you're a parent.
Yeah.
I'm a parent. How do you feel like Jesus as Christ affects the way that you parent?
Yeah. Well, and I'll confess, there are many times when I don't give it thought. There have been times throughout where I'm like, now it may be that hopefully it's baked in and it's a byproduct how I treat my kids and everything. But again, so parents, don't beat yourselves up if you're not always saying, I have to think what would Jesus do in this parenting situation? We slip up. We don't sometimes.
Yeah, the goal isn't to make you feel guilty if,
right,
like, oh, I'm not a perfect parent. Well, guess what? I'm not a perfect parent. Like, ask any one of my 6 kids. They will tell you I am not a perfect parent.
Yeah, neither am I. Yesterday. No. But to answer the question, I think, I don't want to say first and foremost, but I'll just use those phrases. My kids are God's creation. Everyone is God's creation. So my kids are, how do I parent the Christian way? They are God's creation. They are God's. They're my kids, but they're my brothers and sisters in a weird sort of way, So recognizing that, having that, they are their own. I mean, Christine and I, we were infused with this in an early way, is that it's kind of, you may have heard this in Christian circles, that they're God's kids, but they're on loan to us. There are better ways of saying it, perhaps.
No, I think that's awesome, because that's kind of the same. The picture in my mind is stewardship.
Yes,
like I'm a steward of my children.
Yes,
I don't own my children.
Right.
I was brought up right, like you take better care. If I'm going to borrow something, like if you loan me your car, I'm going to be even more careful with your car than I am with my own.
Yeah.
Because this is yours.
Yeah.
Like it demands a higher level of care and protection. What if I treat my kids the same way? Hey, these aren't my kids.
Yes.
These are God's kids.
That's right.
That he's entrusted me with.
Yeah.
Oh, how do I?
Yeah.
If God handed me 6 random kids and said, take care of these, how well am I going to take care of these kids? I would hope.
I'd be like, whoa.
I would do everything I could.
Well, and you'd want to get to know them. Here's a random kid I've never met before. So there's that whole aspect. I want to get to know them. Of course, there's the guiding and and all that, but it's like, after 30 plus years of marriage with my wife, I'm still getting to know her.
Mhm.
Right. And so after, depending on the age of the kids, X number of years with your kids, you're still getting to know them. And so it's that dignifying, and this sounds very secular, but nothing secular, right? Because anytime a secular person says show dignity to somebody, that's a Christian value. That is a godly value. So there's no separation.
That's part of the imprint of the image of God in us.
Yes.
Is that demand for dignity.
Yeah.
Right? So I don't want to get sideways here, but like in a Darwinian model, like, why would you give anybody dignity?
Yeah.
Survival of the fittest.
That's right.
Right? Like, hey, if they can't cut it, they can't cut it.
Oh, sorry for you.
We don't want them to reproduce.
I'll take your coffee, or your green lime candy, whatever it is.
Yeah, that's right.
But so that's how that shows up. Of course, it shows up where you listen to the promptings and God says, this is your child, but my child. Talk to them about me. But that's not exclusively what it means to be a Christian parent or a Christian worker or anything. So it's again, it's all of life. How do we be a human and as God intended to other people? So it's that kind of superstructure, I think. So, but to get real specific, you warn them about certain things. Hey, what about this kid you're hanging around? What about this? What about that? What about caring for yourself, caring for your body? Because the body is just as spiritual as, it's just, God intends you to have a healthy body and a good body. So yeah, those are some things with parenting, how that shows up.
No, that's good. That's good. Let's go into marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus is Lord.
Yeah.
How does that affect the way that you engage with Christine, with, whatever?
Yeah. Well, rubber stamp what I just said before, but it's, and Paul calls it a mystery, right? He calls it a mystery.
Ephesians 5. Yeah.
So marriage is, first above all things, a picture of Christ and the church. Okay. So for me, direct orders, for lack of a better word, instruction, for me is to husbands, love your wives. There's not a period there. There's a pattern, not a period, not a pattern. Love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. So it's the daily dying, which, again, not a pro, made many mistakes. Guys, don't beat yourselves up. Join me in not doing this well. But that is, I've had some, Christine can tell you, some good moments where it's like, okay, I'm going to die to myself here. I'm going to love, which was, again, in that context, Roman husbands weren't expected to love their wives necessarily, right? In that context, for the Jews, I'm sure they were.
Well, but even there, like in that culture overall, Greco-Roman culture, even in Jewish culture, like women were not as valued as men.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's definitely disparity.
Yeah.
There. So some people like knock Paul, like, oh, like he must have hated women. No, Paul and Jesus,
he helped set him free.
Jesus first, and then Paul greatly elevated the status of women.
Yes.
Like this sort of blown the minds of people in their culture.
Yes.
So
yes.
so in Ephesians 5, and unfortunately some people still run with this incorrectly.
Yep.
The part that says, wives, submit to your husbands, and some husbands are like, ha-ha!
But you know what's before that?
Keep reading.
What's before that? 529 or something? Submit to one another. There's a blanket statement.
That's the whole thing. If you really look at it, it's mutual submission.
Yes.
Mutual submission.
Yeah.
So and this is if I'm doing a wedding, this is kind of my go-to passage because it's
wives submit to your husbands.
Well, no, wives submit to your husbands, but husbands love your wives as Christ loved the church. I would suggest the demand on husbands is greater.
It's to die
than that put on the wife.
Yes.
So gentlemen, you want to live in your marriage as though Christ is Lord. Love your wife like he loved the church.
Yes.
Which was a self-sacrificial love.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Anticipating needs. Now, wives, sometimes you just have to speak up and say, this is what I need, just like husbands do. But I think part of my role as a Christian husband is to say, okay, because I got all the things I'm doing, so Kinsey says I'm really selfish. Remember, he said that before. I'm really selfish too. You know,
Me too.
Here we are. This is through confession. So, because I think, okay, what do I want to do? What do I want to do? So, how about waking up? And again, not doing this real well, but there have been good moments where God has said, "Why don't you set aside what you want to do and anticipate her needs?" So I'm like, okay, what about this? She would really be happy about this and this and this. And I think that's how that looks. Jesus is the Christ, so that's how that shows up in a marriage.
Okay. I'm going to pop up. Look.
Yeah.
Make sure we're still recording.
No problem.
But let's get practical. As an employee.
Yes.
What does it look like for me as an employee or an employer?
Oh, yeah.
To live as though Christ was Lord.
Yes.
So start talking on that while I look to see if we're still recording.
Yes. So I would say, oh, that's my community card. I would say, well, I serve. Okay, so this is the same passage in Ephesians. Slaves, work. How does he say it? Work as though you were working, because you're working for your. I'm paraphrasing. You're working for your master. You have another master. Thank you for pulling it up. What's he say?
So this is actually, he crossed over into Ephesians 6, starting in verse 5.
There we go. Yeah.
This is in the New Living Translation. It
Yeah.
says, slaves, obey your earthly masters with deep respect and fear. Serve them, again, not fear, like, not like, I'm afraid of you, like the awe, reverence, that kind of thing. Serve them sincerely as you would serve Christ. Try to please them all the time, not just when they are watching you. As slaves of Christ, do the will of God with all your heart. Work with enthusiasm as though you were working for the Lord rather than for people.
Yes. So go ahead. Sorry.
No. I don't want to.
I was just going to say, so as an employee, there's always this thankfulness and gratitude that I've got this job and that I've got to be able, I'm able to do what I do, you know, although we all have those moments as employees of being like, you know, you grumble. So there's gratitude, thankfulness, but also turning over what I'm doing. I'm doing my lesson plans. I'm doing what I'm doing for God. And again, you just talked about it. What if I were entrusted with five random kids? Well, 135 random kids, you know, and I'm not parenting them, but it's a few steps removed from that.
Reminder, George is a teacher.
Yes.
So that's what he's talking about.
Teacher, yes. And so there is that parent, there is that shepherding, okay, which is one of my, when we did the scale thing, that was one of my, whatever you call it.
You're like in the spiritual gifts or in like the ministry gifts? Yeah.
Yes. So it shows up again, rubber stamp this, sounds like a bad phrase, but those kids have dignity too. Don't treat them like they're little slaves. And let me tell you, we as teachers can tend to, because you want to control them, because sometimes they need to be controlled in ways, because if they're not controlled themselves, a phrase I use a lot of times is manage yourself or somebody else will. You know, and that is my job too. But how do you manage a kid that is a little out of control or whatever? So that's how that looks. Gratitude, thankfulness, skill. Okay. Ask. I have literally, and again, this is becoming more and more, which I'm getting excited about. Literally paused in the middle of lessons or things and just said, God, I need your help here. Help me to explain this better. Help me to do this. Or as I'm doing my lesson plans, okay, how does this look? And then stuff comes. It's really cool.
So
it's very cool.
So that we're going to tap back to, this was months ago, in the More series, when we talked about prayer, right? My wife kind of co-taught with me, and she was talking about that even with like things like God is the master chef.
Yes. Yes.
Like if Jesus is Lord, like if Jesus is the Messiah, he's God made flesh, come to save us all, right? Like he knows everything. He knows what you need to teach these kids. He knows what these kids are going through. Like, I think one of the ways that we can live as though he were the Christ, the Messiah, is to seek him in some of these things that seem mundane.
Yes.
Seek him in some of these things that are like, well, no, that's just my job. Lord, if you were a teacher, to middle school students, how would you do it?
How would you do it? Yeah.
How do you want me to do it?
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
and again, we're going to just keep hammering this. There's no divide between the sacred and secular. So what I'm doing, Martin Luther famously said, when the farm maiden is milking the cow, she's doing a very spiritual act. I'm paraphrasing that, but what she's doing is important. It matters to God. And so I'm recognizing that more, that all those little things, a seating chart, everything, it matters to God, and it's important. He cares about that. It's not like, well, let's just get through this and then go read your Bible. It's all under God, So
yep. No, that's good, man. That's good. Where do we want to go from there? What else you got in your notes?
Again, the problem is sin. I want my way. Ryan was saying this as it was bouncing off the houses. And he said something which was profound. He said, but I must be rescued by me, or from me. I must be rescued from me. We can be our own worst sin. We do it to ourselves, which is pretty
well,
awesome.
And I think there's from the dawn of humanity, right? From the fall of humanity, I should say, but like there is an undertow of self-idolatry.
Yeah.
Right. Adam and Eve. How does the serpent tempt them? Eat this.
Yeah.
You will be like God.
Yeah.
Like we have this underlying idea that somehow like the world, the universe revolves around us.
Right.
In a sense, making us God. So it's a shock to the system and a challenge sometimes to actually come to a place of setting ourselves aside to allow for Jesus to be that one. So
well, and the beauty of it though is when we set ourselves, we become more fully human. When we set ourselves aside, we become more fully human. In that we were not created to take the place of God.
Right.
We were created to be, and it sounds so bad. The world rages against us. Don't submit to no limits, no rules, no nothing. Well, welcome to hell. Really, welcome to hell.
Right.
The 10 Commandments. Any command from Jesus is freedom based.
Limits are a gift.
Yes.
Yeah. But we rail against it, but again, I would say that's all part of that self-idolatry because we want to believe that there are no limits.
Yeah.
For I can do. I mean, this is a pet peeve of mine.
Okay.
This is a pet peeve of mine, right?
Pajamas in Walmart.
We tell kids. Look,
sorry.
I'm pretty sure that's standard issue in Walmart.
All right. Sorry.
That's all right. No, but I mean, this is even like in subtle things like. You'll hear people say to kids in particular, "Hey, work hard and you can be anything you want to be." No, you can't.
No,
you can't. Like that's a lie.
All right.
Like we're lying to kids.
Right.
You can't be anything that you want to be.
Right.
Guess what? Like there are physically, mentally, emotionally.
Yeah.
Like you've got a limited number of things that you can do.
I could never play in the NBA or NFL.
No, I'm not athletic really at all. Like I couldn't do any of those things.
Yeah.
Can you grow in skill with practice and discipline? Sure.
Yeah.
But there are some people that just like if you do not have an innate sense of rhythm.
Yes.
You're probably not going to make it as a world-class drummer.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
You could work hard, but if you don't have that, I don't know if you're going to get that. Right. Yeah. There are people that you just can't.
Yeah.
You just can't. We have limits, but we try to pretend like we don't.
Yeah.
I can do it all. No, you can't. No, I can't.
that is so crushing, I think, to a lot of people, because then, well, give me some direction. I mean, so no, I don't want to limit you. You just kind of do that. It's sometimes very great for somebody to say, maybe you ought to try this instead.
So here's super, and you're gonna experience this on some level.
Mhm.
But you don't have to be the guinea pig, right? So you're
Right.
gonna be in the Institute.
Yep.
This fall.
Yep.
We learned the hard way, and we still feel bad for everyone that went through our first year of the Institute because they were our guinea pigs. And guess what?
Oh, I heard a lot of good things from those people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they had to deal with a lot of our missteps as we structured things. So for the first half of the first semester, we basically told them, hey, write a paper about this.
Yeah.
Write it however you want, and that'll be great. And they really struggled with that.
Yes.
We thought, hey, not everybody has the same academic experience. We're going to kind of give them free reign so they can write it however they're
Right.
comfortable.
Right.
And that went really badly. When we learned from this, so we said, okay, here are the specific parameters
Yeah.
for how we want you to write this paper. Guess what? Everybody's papers got better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Within boundaries,
Yep.
within limits,
It's a beautiful thing.
they were able to function much better.
Yeah.
Because when anything is a possibility, it doesn't go well.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Man, what if instead of telling kids, hey, you work hard, you can be anything you want to be, we pay attention.
Yeah.
Hey, where are this kid's strengths?
Yep.
Where do they have giftings and abilities? Let's fan the flame of those things
Yes.
instead of trying to tell them they can be anything they want to be. It looks like they've got really good potential to be this.
Yeah.
Let's help them be the best this
Yes.
they can be.
Yes. And how many people have you talked to that said, I had a high school teacher or a coach or somebody that said, what about this? And boom, that was the spark that ignited
Yep.
their
Yep.
path,
Yeah, maybe you heard it. I mean, it's those I see in you
Yeah.
conversations.
Great
Right?
words.
Hey,
Great words.
man, I see this potential in you.
Yeah.
And because, I mean, sometimes we have blinders for ourselves, whether it's the self-deception, like we talked about
Yes.
last week, right? Like self-deception. And I think I can be anything that I want to be.
Yeah.
When in reality, I can't.
Right.
Or maybe it's the opposite. And I severely underrate
Yeah.
my ability to contribute to anything.
Yeah.
And you need somebody to kind of build that up in you. I think we need to find that middle of the road
Yeah.
where, hey, what are some potential things within people? And let's build that up.
And
Because they're not the center of the universe.
No.
They're not the Lord.
no,
They can't be anything they want
Right.
to be.
go to the one who knows.
Yeah.
Go to the one who knows. And let's take this opportunity again to push in again to the spiritual disciplines. That self-knowledge, for lack of a better word, but it is self-knowledge, can't happen real well, or it happens better, let's put it, when you're in silence and solitude. And you get the reverberations from other people when you're in community, right? So come to church. Okay.
Get in a group.
Get in a group. And again, when you're reading the word. So all those disciplines help to flesh out what it means for Christ to be, Jesus is the Christ. Jesus is the Christ.
No,
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
That's good. That's good.
I like it.
Okay. This has been something that, and Ryan said it. I'm going to say it in a paraphrase. I don't know exactly the way, but this has been something that has just really crystallized with me a lot more. Is he said, we proclaim a person, not a system of rules or religious beliefs. Okay. Do you remember him saying something to that effect? And that's a big, profound statement too, because Jesus is the Christ. Jesus, and this is where the world gets it wrong a lot of times, Jesus wasn't all about a new system of rules. Yes, but no.
I say there are boundaries.
There are boundaries,
But-
okay? But he said he was very egocentric, if we can say it that way. He said, it's about me. It's about me. Come to me. He said, you're always going to have the poor, but you won't always have me. Those are some pretty bold statements. He said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. So all these I am statements, all these statements, he was like, yeah, follow my rules. I've got a new command for you and everything. But originates with me. So we get it backwards, I think. And this is where I want to say this carefully. Tim Keller, who passed away recently, used to talk about the moralists, right? The moralists would be
It's all about rules.
it's all about rules. So in Christianity, if this is Jesus and these are the rules, Jesus is the reason for the rules. If we put the rules and we lean heavily on don't do this, this is how a Christian looks, this is how a Christian listens to me. If all those rules, if we put those first, but remember Jesus said, you diligently study the scriptures. You're all in your Bibles, but you forget that they're the scriptures that testify about me. He's like, I'm here. This is what all of this points to, right? And so that, I never tire of hearing that because we can easily, especially in American Protestantism, I'm sorry, this is a soapbox for me.
No, dude, soapbox is not out
we
of
can
this thing,
really
man.
push about, what does a Christian look like? Oh, those are the people that do this and don't do that. Yes and no. What about those are the people that they love Jesus? They're always talking about Jesus instead of how bad this is and how bad society is and while that is true, we need to speak up. Anyway, that's...
No, I mean, it's kind of, are you familiar with Simon Sinek? He's big. He's not a believer, to the best of my knowledge, but he
The
does
YouTube guy
a really brilliant teaching.
Okay.
He's got a book. He's done teaching, like a TED Talk.
Okay.
Start with why,
Yeah.
right? Like when we come to terms with Jesus, right?
Uh-huh.
We have the why for the rules. If we start with the rules, like you're saying, like we've got the horse and the cart
Yeah.
out of order,
Yes.
right? When we come into this relationship with Jesus, we understand, this is why there are boundaries.
Yeah.
This is why,
Yeah.
but it's not me following the rules to try to earn or get into this relationship, which is the old system,
Right.
right? The
Right.
old system is, hey, these are the things you have to do
Yes.
to maintain a relationship with God.
Yeah.
I would argue the point of all of that was to demonstrate that it is impossible
Yes.
for us to keep the rules
Yep.
well enough to maintain any sort of relationship with God.
Yeah. Yeah.
All of that was a setup for Jesus.
Yes.
Everything in here pointed to Jesus. All your older Testament pointed to Jesus.
Yes. These are the scriptures that testify about me.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. And so, yeah, you have to get the things in order, coming into that place of recognizing Jesus as Christ.
Yeah.
Jesus as Lord.
Yeah. And he talked
From there.
Sorry.
No, from there,
Yeah.
the lifestyle of a follower of Jesus will flow out of that. But what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, he talked so much about rest and about relaxing, comfort, all of this. It was, yes, he came and overturned but he was speaking to the religious people. He's saying, you're getting it backwards.
Right.
And he talked so much about, again,
Keep talking.
Jesus is the Christ, meaning I have comfort. It's about resting in me. Yes, if you rest in me, you'll follow the rules. You'll learn what it means to be human. And when you step outside, don't kill yourself. Don't beat yourself up. Don't beat your next door neighbor up over, their faults and everything else. Again, there are times to speak up. Hey, officer, something's bad going on here. Again, we don't live silent lives, but we also rest in him. Not in following rules, because we're gonna mess up all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So that really chimed with me. I love hearing that.
All right. Unless you've got something else, we'll go to kind of how he went towards the end. And you read Mark 8:34,
Yes.
which New Living Translation says, then calling the crowd to join his disciples, he said, if any of you wants to be my follower, you must give up your own way, take up your cross and follow me. And maybe your translation says, deny yourself, take up your cross and follow me. So this is, it's connected to what we've been talking about, right? If in the context of marriage, if in the context of parenting, if in the context of a job or, whatever, if my daily practice is to deny myself,
Yeah.
right? To recognize that it's not about me.
Right.
I take up my cross, right? Like this, hey, like I'm doing this. It might not be comfortable. It might not be fun, but I'm doing this based on the model Jesus gave us, right?
Yeah.
And I'm going to follow after Jesus. I'm going to say, hey, Lord, wherever you're going, wherever you want me to go.
Yeah.
That's where I'm going to go today.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think that's where you see radical transformation happen.
Yeah. And it's, again, the daily, the minutely, the hourly. Deny. And again, could it be that when we deny ourselves, we actually get more than what we would have had if we hadn't? In other words, we see the shiny out there and we say, I want that. Or it could be an object, could be a situation, whatever. It could be if I just had. And if when we deny ourselves certain things, could it be that that's leaning into abundance? So we're actually getting as we deny. I don't want to. I don't want to speak double talk and like mystery.
No.
But you know what I mean?
Would say it's a paradox. Right?
It's the upside down kingdom, right? The paradox.
It's paradoxical.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, again, even non-believers, secular, know this, that if you deny yourself certain foods or pleasures, psychologists, everybody, coaches will say, you need to deny yourself this for a bit so that you can achieve a higher level of X, Y, and Z. And it's that way.
Well, I mean, a budget, right?
Yeah.
If I create a budget,
yeah.
If Nicole and I run a budget, there are going to be things that we have to say no to in order to do these other things.
Yes.
Right? There's a denial. I mean, are there things that I would like to spend money on? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you say no to this so that this happens. Right? I mean, I think that's a thing you see in all different arenas of life.
Yeah. The whole thing though with the cross, and he touched on this. I think he said we're like 2,000 years removed from. I don't know. That'd be an interesting question. When was actually the last crucifixion? I just thought about
it. Somebody should look that up.
Look that up.
I don't have that immediately handy.
Because it wasn't Jesus. I mean,
no.
And Jesus and the two thieves weren't the only ones. I mean, we have thousands of bones with.
Yeah, I mean, the Roman Empire extended far beyond the life of Jesus.
But at any rate, that's such a, we decorate the crosses, we wear them as necklaces. I got one on my car and all that. And it has a rich meaning to us, but to them in the first century in the Roman Empire and what had a totally different, it's an object of horror, shame. And then, and this is where Ryan talked about follow Jesus at any cost. And I wrote down, I will have to die to a lot in life. So if there's shame, he mentioned lost relationships, he mentioned financial hardships, any of that, now some of those problems we bring on ourselves. Okay, I want to be careful there. But that's the cross. That's how the crucified life looks. But I know for myself, I'm very far from that in a lot of ways. So that's something I need to lean into because it's not appealing. And we think, oh yeah, Jesus, abundant life and everything. And I have Jesus and I get all the things that I want too. Yeah.
Well, and we have to keep eternity in focus, right? Because if we look at this life and think, hey, you only go around once, so you got to live with all the gusto you can, right? And it's this mindset of like, hey, whatever this lifespan I get here on Earth, that's all I got.
Yeah.
So I got to grab as much as I can. I've got to enjoy as much as I can. Like, well, no, like,
well,
in one way or another, we live eternally.
Exactly. Because kids will say this too. Kids that I teach. What was the YOLO? That was the phrase, right? You only live once. And I would say that's right. So make good choices. So you can flip that around. You can say, you only live life. Go for the gusto. Yeah, you only live life. Don't mess it up.
Yeah, don't jack up eternity on the basis of this 70, 80, 90 years.
Yeah. So you only live once. Milk it for all it's worth in the way that again, here's the limits. Here's follow Christ. You only live once. Follow Christ. You only live once. Jesus is the Christ. Don't miss him.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's Francis Chan, and I've totally borrowed this previously in a message, right? He does the eternity rope.
Okay, I haven't heard this. I haven't heard this.
So he has this illustration where he has this huge length of rope.
Okay.
Right. And he's got like 1 inch of it, like brightly colored or something like that. And he says, hey, just imagine this rope like goes out of the room. It wraps around the earth. 7, 8, 9, 10 times. This rope just keeps going. Like that's eternity.
Right.
He says this little 1 inch section, that's our time span here on earth.
Yeah.
And he says, man, like we put so much time and effort and focus onto this right here.
Yes.
And we neglect
all
the rest of it.
Yes.
And it's like, man, like, so that's why I say we have to keep eternity in focus because that's the reality.
Yeah.
Right? We'll either spend eternity in the presence of God or
not.
In the absence of God, which is a weird concept. We talk about that in the Institute.
Yeah, or in the self-indulgent hell that has no limits, where we're like unhappy. More and more means more and more unhappy. More and more of what I get means more and more unhappiness. There's a living hell right there, and this was this came out in Africa too because we were watching this. We looked at this antlion. You know what an antlion is?
Is it just a line of ants?
Lion. Lion.
I thought
antlion.
Yeah, line. I'm like
they're at your picnic every. I think I saw you at Summer Bash.
Do they go marching one by one? Hurrah!
Yeah, hurrah! But the antlion, it digs that conical. We have them in the States, in Michigan too. They dig that conical shape, and they're at the bottom, and something comes down and it bites it or stings it or something, and then it falls down into this trap. Star Wars. Remember that massive thing?
The Sarlacc pit monster.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's patterned after an antlion. Okay?
I did not know that.
Lucas, you're brilliant, but you didn't make everything up. But anyway, so, no, good guy. But, so anyway, where was I going with that? Oh, we were looking at, I'm sorry, it wasn't an antlion, but we had a good antlion thing. It was a termite. And it dug up two different, long story short, two different colors of soil. And basically he was saying, look, it's digging down through time, basically, because sand deposits. So it's digging down through time because it takes a while in that environment for sand to deposit. And long story short, this is something that God's been telling me about. We are only here for a blip. And we put such great importance on the royal family or this and this. We put so much energy into the here and now, and that's fine. That's what we've got. Okay. But we forget that we're in the greater context of all the time. And I was telling this to the guide and he was like nodding his head, smiling, like this was an eternal principle, a Christian principle that even though we weren't talking Christian, we were talking great truths that God has shown all people, saying, look, you're finite. No, here's your time limit. So if there's a time limit, there are other limits. It was just really cool. It was just really cool.
No, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. I like it. Well, hey, anything else jump out to you, George, or that you want to cover before we wrap the episode up?
I think that about covers it. I enjoyed that. It was nice being there at Summer Bash though with people, and I got around and talked with a bunch of people. We talked, and it's just, I love that. And I know, again, I'm a big extrovert. I know some of the introverts were like, I don't either want to go or, the rain or whatever. And that's fine. But I just enjoyed getting to know more and more of our church family. It was a great time.
It was really good.
Yeah.
Last thing I'll say.
Yes.
Ryan had a line, that which we are most reluctant to give up is most likely to become our substitution for Christ. So that's just part of that self-evaluation. We talk about that frequently. This happens really well in the space of the disciplines.
Yes.
Silence and solitude. The search me prayer. And we talked about this last week with the heart, right? what are things when we hear that call to deny ourselves, take up our cross, and follow Jesus? What are things that we have a really hard time denying
Yeah.
ourselves of?
Yeah.
Right? Make note of those things. That's a real thing, man.
Well,
that's a real thing.
And what's the go-to when you have the time, like unstructured time and everything? What's the go-to? What's the default? That's trigger for me. Like, what would, like, I got to do this, but where's my mind? What do I really want to do? That's the idol. I think too often.
Ooh, that's
for me. That's
no.
That's the idol.
Good.
Because
and we're not saying you need to spend every waking minute
no
carrying your Bible around and reading your Bible. Like,
correct.
Because again, everything can be a spiritual thing, not in some new agey weird way.
Wash the dishes, fix the car, talk to your kids,
Yes.
mow the lawn. Those are important things.
But if we do these intentionally as an act of worship, right? As a hey, if God asked me to wash these dishes, how would I do this in a way that honors Him?
Yeah,
how to do it? Like is that our focal point? But yeah, what you're saying, like what's our go-to is the thing that I go to. Is that something that honors God? Because there are some things we can say, oh, well, I'll just do this thing in a way that honors God. Well, if it's something that actually goes against what God calls us to, you
I'm
can't
just gonna deal these drugs.
That's right. I'm gonna be the best drug dealer I can. I'm gonna deal these drugs as if God asked me to.
That's right.
Wrong.
And I'll do it after 18 beers.
Wrong. There are some things that are off the table as options.
Yeah.
But yeah, what do we turn to? I like that. I like how you asked that question. That was a good way to say it. What's our go-to?
What's our what's our default?
Do we just kind of mindlessly veg out on Netflix or Disney Plus? Do we?
Because was it you? I think it was you that brought up Screw Tape Letters. Was that you? Yeah. And I read it, but it was long ago. But it seems to me one of the letters, it was don't show yourself, don't act evil. He's telling the lesser demon, don't act evil, don't act scary, just keep people busy. Remember that? Mm-hmm. Just busy them. So there is no self-reflection. It's one squirrel to the next, and it's sinister. It's sinister. It can be sinister. Well, but again,
and that too is a failure to recognize limits.
Yeah.
Right. We go from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next.
Yeah.
Because we want to try to get it all.
Yeah.
You can't get it all.
You can't.
It's not possible. Embrace limits. Paul David Tripp has written about that. Pete Scazzero, he writes about limits.
I read that book with Brandon and I.
The Scazzero one.
The
Emotionally Healthy Discipleship. Yeah.
I actually asked him, whenever it was, close to a year ago, I said, can you get me, I need something, I need weight, I need meat. And he just kind of smiled and said, that's been a great book, but the limits, and I think, Josh, it's important for us to remember, because we've said it many times, but it is important. We are we say these things and as safeguards, but also remember we have a Savior who loves us. So when we mess up, when we sin, when we get off track, when we spend too long on the shiny, when we're doing whatever, and we're off track and we're like, oh man, God, that my default is I'm on my 5th hour Netflix or whatever. I'm sorry, God. He's gracious. He's loving. He doesn't say, told you. He says, all right, come to me, you who are heavy laden. Those that are heavy laden and weary are ones that recognize I need a Savior. So perfection, not perfection, a perfect person in Christ. Jesus is the Christ, that perfect person. So it's beautiful to.
No, that's good.
That's
good.
Yeah.
Well, hey, this has been episode 39. George, right here, brother.
Thank you.
This is awesome having
you back on. The cup is empty.
We've drained. We're going to be we'll be running on high octane fuel for the rest of our day, ladies and gentlemen. But
it's still It's like you talk about tasting notes. I think really good coffee stays with you a while too. Is that a thing? I don't know.
Well, there's definitely. I mean, if you go and like drink some water or eat a candy bar or a scone or something, it'll probably diminish it. But yeah,
Sure.
there's like a mouthfeel.
There's a nice resonance there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's good.
Thank you very
It's good.
much.
No, this is awesome. This
Yes.
is awesome.
Yes.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, as always, we encourage you to like, share, rate, review, share, subscribe. I always forget which ones I
Do
say.
the social media thing.
Do the things where you do the things with the things. Utilize that gadget in your hand for purposes of putting this out there to hopefully encourage other people. We're cruising, man. I looked not too long ago because remember we did the coffee party when we hit 750
Yes.
subscribers. We might be right around 850 now.
Ooh.
So we're creeping closer to that.
And we're going on that
1,000.
cruise for 1,000, right?
That's right.
That's what he just said. We're cruising.
the cruise to the cruise to Ethiopia to get coffee.
Oh, I would love to go to Ethiopia. There's a whole discussion there.
So
yeah,
no, that'd be great.
they
But
think the ark is there.
the Ark,
Some people think the ark is there.
Noah's or of the Covenant.
No, sorry. Yeah, the Ark of the Covenant. Yeah.
Okay.
No, seriously.
Okay,
There are. Yeah, that's a whole nother discussion.
we'll have to do a bonus episode for that sometime.
Yeah.
So, but hey, we appreciate you guys hanging out with us as always. It's a pleasure. Next week, you'll probably have JB and an unknown guest at this time. I will be out of town next week.
Oh.
We warned you the summer's going to be different, but hang in there. JB knows what he's doing. JB is a rock star. But until next time, and it'll be the 40th episode next time. That's gonna be super cool.
All you 40-year-olds, you're welcome on the.
It was been like a giant group of people on the podcast. Which this is the year for 40. I turned 40 this year.
Oh.
Ryan turned 40 this year.
Wow.
Brandon Fish, our facilities guy,
Yeah,
he turned 40 this year. That's
that's a thing, isn't it?
that's the thing.
I remember that
So
12 years ago.
I'm just trying to catch up with you, George. That's what I'm
You
doing.
can't.
Well, hey, you guys are awesome. We'll see you next time.
All right.